Bitcoins and beer, Bitcoins and beer. Here is Norm, he's a storm, has his creams and razor rants. He is here drinking beer, spilling Bitcoins on his pants. Hello, it's me, Norm again. Here once again to drink beer and rant about Bitcoin. I know it's been a while because there's a lot of stuff going on. Lots to get your head around. And people may ask, how do you get your head around this stuff? And how does it affect Bitcoin? Well, today we're not going to talk about how it affects Bitcoin because technically it should affect Bitcoin, but who knows whether or not it will, because it should affect gold, silver, precious metals in general. But tomorrow, we're on a cliffhanger here. It's a cliffhanger. Tomorrow, we're going to know if we're going to go off the cliff. Today, the Fed met. Janet Yellen, not Ben Bernanke anymore, but Janet Yellen met. Oh, let's get to today's beer. Sorry, I didn't get to today's beer. I already opened it. I've already been indulging in a couple. Torpedo by Sierra Nevada once again. One of my favorite breweries. Oh, you can't really quite see the sign there. But I also had a Racer 5, actually, before this, too. So, and I probably haven't had enough to eat to absorb the food like all the beer. Like so many people haven't had enough to eat to absorb all the information that's about to come out. So today the Fed met. Tomorrow they're going to announce their decision whether or not to raise interest rates. Important. This is important to the economy. Why is this important? Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a new digital economy. Whether it be Bitcoin or some other digital token is yet to be seen. But if it uses a blockchain or something else regarding the blockchain, you have to understand that our ACH system, which is what we use right now, is 100 years old. And that's kind of manual and has a lot of checks and balances. Great. They're not digital checks and balances. They don't cover the Byzantine generals problem. And then we have our analog one, the credit card system, which is 65 years old, at least over 50. Well, let's say over 50 years old. Analog system. When the internet came out, they backfitted their system to work with the internet. Both of them. Bitcoin came out with its system, not necessarily Bitcoin, but the system of Bitcoin, the blockchain, to work with the internet. And this is the blockchain. That's what I've been trying to explain on deaf ears, well, especially according to my ratings, because I get like under 100 views. But it's a cliffhanger because tomorrow the Fed is going to announce their plan, whether or not they're going to raise interest rates or not. Here's the problem. They haven't raised interest rates in, 10 years now? 10 years. at least. Ben Bernanke and now Janet Yellen, uh, due to a number of different variables, probably mostly governmental controlled variables, saying kick can down the road till our end of administration, and especially since this is right before a very important election, and there is I believe, a Republican debate on tonight, which should have been interesting because there's like a couple of candidates in there that freaking shake things up. Well, mainly Donald Trump, who's actually leading in the polls, oddly enough. Oddly enough. Because he is shaking things up. He's trumping everybody. I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't follow these things as much as I should. I'm just following the financial situation. And it is glum. Or glib if you're Scientologist, I guess. I don't know. But, interesting stuff's going to happen. Because I don't think the Fed's going to raise interest rates. Because if they, especially right before an election like this, if they do, the housing market, which is already bubbling, I can't remember the Shakespeare term, toil, toil, boil, and trouble. Ben Bernanke put the houses in a bubble and made all the bankers. No, he bailed up the bankers so they wouldn't go to jail because the banks were too big to fail, whatever. I don't know. Just going to be a very interesting thing. What they should do is announce how they're going to raise interest rates, because they have to. They've been basically working for 10 years without any income, because interest rates are their income. You have to remember this. Instead, they bailed out the banks. They bailed them out, yeah. And now maybe they're going to use their incomes to the bank's income, instead of to put them back into the banks, which they should do, to raise up everything and make them solvent. They're probably going to put them into stuff like cleaning up the streets, which should be like when you pay for gas, that should be covering your potholes and all that stuff. That should be the taxes going into there. But they're probably got to like mix the books around, cook the books, so to speak. I'm drunk, so don't take my word for it. And move some of these funds around instead of putting it back into the banking system, which they should do. Which all the banking kind of moved it back into things, and Wells Fargo bought out Wachovia, Chase bought out WAMU. Gosh, there's all these banks that got paid out big money. The bigger they were, the more money they got paid, so they got to buy out their competitors. Which is absolutely ridiculous. Since they are publicly traded, and all the CEOs got a big raise. Jamie Dimon got a big raise. And then he cheated the system for another freaking at least 5 years, probably more. And just got to pay a fine for it. He didn't get charged for any of that. Well, no. I mean, jail time charge. The system we are working with is from the 70s. When Nixon sent in Henry Kissinger, just ask, email Ben Stein. He was on that. He was one of their economics experts. Yeah, Bueller. Yeah, that guy was an economic expert. About what Henry Kissinger did, which was actually a genius move to make it last another 40 freaking years of this Kensington experiment, that neocon Kensington experiment that he started with the OPEC nation making petrodollar. If I wasn't so drunk, I could explain this more clearly, but Einstein said once, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it much well enough. And, you know, if I have to get drunk to forget it, forget it. But the bottom line is, tomorrow is a cliffhanger. Because on their decision, we are either going to go off the cliff, or they're going to move some numbers around, make us stay on the cliff. But still, we're hanging off the cliff. They're not making us back away from the cliff. The Fed is just a bunch of people that saying, we don't know, we went with plan B instead of plan A, and it didn't work. And we can't go back to plan A. I mean, this is ridiculous. If they don't raise interest rates, there's going to be inflation. If they raise interest rates, there's going to be hyperinflation. But they need to, if they just say, oh, we're not going to raise interest rates, they're going to have to put out some sort of plan. They're not going to put out a plan. They're just going to say, like what Donald Trump's saying, yeah, I have a plan, I just can't tell you about it. Inflation. That's what's going to happen. Either way. We're either going to fall off the cliff and it's going to be hyperinflation, or they're going to do a QE5 of some sort, which devaluing our dollar, which means inflation. Inflation. Our bonds are already being inflated because China is sending back bonds at devalued prices. So if you're into bonds right now, there might be capital control. Capital control. Which means a freeze on credit. A credit freeze. Which is pretty much happening in China. There's too many variables involved for me to forecast anything. I don't want to predict anything because that makes me seem like some sort of swami with a turban, which at some point in this economic downfall, I feel like I need to be a salami with a turban. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I could see it all. But I'm seeing stuff I wish you all could see. But you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. And that what is disturbing me the most. Disturbing me. Cheers. So she saved, so Sharon.